So the past few years have been a really intense time for humanity, right? I was listening to a podcast just the other day about how global conflict is at an 80-year high. So unless you're quite old, you've never lived through a time with so many wars going on all at the same time. It's tough to accept because in many ways our lifespan has been an unprecedented era of peace for humanity, but the past few years, it's been a big unwelcome step backwards. And so, you've got Gaza and Ukraine, those have commanded the most attention, but places like Congo and Haiti and Sudan and Armenia, a lot of these places have struggled to get attention because of our own biases and just because so much is going on. But I think it's important, it's really difficult to talk about these things. It can get really messy, but it's really important too, because I think without that, we're kind of like, if you've seen the movie Zone of Interest, kind of like the dad in that movie who's just so obsessed with building his dream house for his family right next to the Auschwitz concentration camp. It's kind of tone deaf to what's happening right next to him, and yet it can feel like that when we're trying to just live our usual ordinary lives in spite of it. We in many ways have to survive though, and so that's a whole nother topic, but I want to share some things I've learned from all that's going on over the past few years, a couple observations and some commitments that has led me to. So I've noticed it's really easy for conversations about conflict to quickly descend into just this game of pointing fingers and saying like, well, these actions are justified because a few years ago the other side did this, and then the other side's like, well, no, we did that because a few years prior you did this, and you see where this is going, right? Like 4 years ago, the U.S. took out a top-ranking Iranian official in a drone strike, and there was a lot of talk about how Iran would retaliate, and kind of the U.S. had something to point to that that led them towards this. And really, you can draw this all the way back to 1979, the Iran hostage crisis, which is where relations between the two countries really went south. And the reason why that strikes me as so interesting is because in Iran, 93% of the country is below the age of 65. So the vast majority of Iranians were not around for 1979, and if they were likely children. So when we're only playing the blame game to justify what's going on, we're essentially doing what, passing on generational trauma here. We're allowing these wars to continue, and the state of the world, what we see unfold on the news, as terrible as that is what we're passing on to our kids. Now, that is really hard to accept because in some cases, the blame game feels very right. In some cases, it is right. The facts are all accurate and stuff. But my commitment is, can we be more committed to positioning our conversation and framing it around moving forward, finding a way so that this stuff doesn't happen anymore, rather than just trying to justify retaliation. I know it's not easy. I'm really glad I don't have to make that call as a political official or somebody who actually has to decide these things at the country level, because I think that's where it's complicated. But I think at the conversational, interpersonal, human-to-human level, being able to say, yeah, these things should not happen. If they're happening because of something that happened before, that shouldn't have happened either. How do we end it? The biggest goal, what we need to do right now, is to end it. The other big thing, the other takeaway is I think the blame game is so easily perpetuated because there's so much hurt, right? And people need to express that hurt. They need that hurt to be seen and heard. And so often the blame game just in improv there's a term, yes and. It does the opposite of that. It does no butting to everybody's pain, whether that's generational trauma or just the pain of what you see on the news unfold. And so, can you just make more space for people's hurt? I really believe that this is one of the most radical things right now in the world that people could be doing. It's just figuring out how to sit with other people's pain without justifying it, without trying to placate it with a cheap comfort, to just give them space and let them be heard. So much of the conversation around big issues, big events online is just a constant shouting match. And making space for people's pain is our ticket out of that. And stepping away from the blame game is our ticket out of these cycles that just get passed on. I'm eager to end this, end these conflicts. I know I'm just one person, and these conflicts are literally at a international and planetary scale, but I think the way we talk about them does have an impact on what happens. And I want to see us in a different spot a generation from now than we are right now. And some of that will happen with how we talk about it. So those are my thoughts. That's a takeaway. Use that. Hopefully you are having conversations about these things. I know it's not easy, but hopefully this provides some clarity in that area. All right.